Hey guys, welcome back to the JPM Performance channel. It is time for a shop tour. It has been a couple of weeks since our last shop tour because we were at VIR for the Hoosier Super Tour. There was a ton of drivers there. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. But here we are already into the middle of April. So our last shop tour was in May, and here we are in the middle of April. It's our first shop tour in April. Anyway, we'll just get right into the shop tour. You can see I've got a clean slate because literally minutes ago I finished up Steve Lanzier's Spec Miata engine, which I'll show you here after we work our way around. So I'm in a little bit of catch-up mode. Whenever I go to these, like literally last week I left Tuesday morning for VIR and I got back Monday afternoon from VIR. So I basically lost a week in the shop. I don't really call it a loss, but I didn't get a whole lot done in the shop. So this transmission is actually next on my list to get completed. Be working on that this afternoon, trying to get this done for Bill Knight for Hallett. Because I do know that Chris Campbell's coming up with Matt Reynolds' EP car to dyno on Monday, and he could take that. So I'm going to get that done. In the meantime, I'm right in the middle of finishing up Steve Lanzier's Spec Miata engine. You can see it's brand new, painted block. We've got our new powder-coated valve cover restored, looking really good. I did think that I was going to give you guys a quick tip here. I just happened to be right in the middle of installing the dipstick tube. So for any of you guys that have been around Miatas at all, this dipstick tube sits way down here in the pan. And I can tell you from experience, if your O-ring on the bottom of this tube they get a little old and they get a little cracked, so I always replace these. But I thought I'd run through real quick the other thing that I do for you real quick. So I use a little bit of Ultra Gray and I will put it around the O-ring just like this. And this will fill in any potential gaps, because if you're at the track and this starts to leak, you're going to be in trouble. So I'll do that. I'll slide it into the pan just like that. Go ahead and put my dipstick tube in. This is a 99, so he is going to get the ground strap installed. This is where they install ground straps on 99 Miatas, right here on the dipstick tube. Believe it or not, on the NA Miatas, they had actually cast a bung in the cylinder head right about here, and so the ground strap went here, but on a 99 it goes like this. So here's the other thing I do. So we've got that in there, but come close and take a look. The other thing that I'll do to fill in any gaps is I will literally go around this tube like that, and then I will use my finger and get this completely filled in. This way we've got an O-ring and we've got it double siliconed. I've seen too many of these doggone dipstick tubes in Miatas leak. So that has been a really good fix for that. So tip of the day, there you go. In the meantime, we've got, here, let's come on over this direction. We've got the 626 in the shop for a brake job. So these rotors, I haven't actually done brakes on this, but it would appear that these rotors are part of the hub. So I may end up pulling the part of the suspension off. I haven't done it on this car yet, but needs some brakes and pads, and we'll get that all finished up. So I think Dave is going to come and pick this up on Saturday, so I need to get this done here in the next day or so as well. Did bring back an engine for Perry. This is a motor that's probably, I think it's a couple years old at this point. You can see how dingy and dirty it is. So it's back for a refresh, and this will be Perry's Runoff's engine. Also have a couple of differentials in here in these boxes for him that we'll be getting to working on. So it is what I like to call in the queue. Also need to get Wade's car done here in the next few days. So I've actually got a lot to get done in the next week because we are heading to Hallett next Thursday afternoon. So a lot of what you see in the shop this week needs to be completed by next week, including Bob Shader's Z car, which I have not touched since I brought it back from our test day, but I did get a new helmet kit and some new, we need to try and figure out how to get the radios to work, and the radios did not work at all. So I think it may be in his helmet kit and his helmet. We'll see about that. Okay, guys, VIR, what do we call it? VIR results and report. The BMW, as you can see, came back completely flawless. I knew Greg was a good driver, but he really proved himself last weekend. Ran some awesome lap times in a car that he's never driven in. Looking at the data, we've just got a couple little things we're going to work on by the time we get to September. We'll do our analysis on that, and basically was fastest every session and led every lap of both races, qualifyings, the whole shot. I think the only real adjustment that we had to do over the weekend was we did a little tweak on the seat, lowering him down just a tick. Greg's not used to being in an open car, and so he was getting a lot of wind in the face, and he also has one of these helmets that is made for really good ventilation for an enclosed car. So he may want to think about a different helmet at some point as well, and some earbuds so he can hear me a little bit better. But the radios worked good. It's just a little teething processes that we're dealing with. Also, we did end up switching the car over for a rain session, which he got a few laps in the rain before they had a whole conglomeration of disasters, which honestly happened a lot over the weekend because of the extremely cold temperatures and the rain that we got at VIR. Kind of reminded me of the runoffs. But that is our E-production report. Not as exciting as the F production report. So we had a slew of good drivers at the racetrack last weekend. We had Cliff Iyer and his Del Sol, and we had a slew of Miatas between Perry and Steven and Doug Weaver and Mason Workman and Charlie Campbell, all guys up front. Happy to report that we had JPM engines on all three steps of the podium both days. The order could have been reversed in a million different ways, but we had Cliff win on Saturday. Charlie Campbell was second, Mason was third, and all three of them led at one point. I think actually Cliff only led on the very last lap. The Miata boys had their own little teething issues. And then in Sunday's race, Michael Chameleon with his brand new, and I didn't even mention him at the beginning, Michael Chameleon with his brand new JPM engine pulled off the win on Sunday. So really happy about that. Cliff was second, and a shout out to Steven Simons, who was third. So here is our lesson that we learned over the weekend for the Simons boys. Thursday night after the test day, they were predicting rain, and I mean it was supposed to rain all night. Friday morning was supposed to be wet. We had the BMW completely flipped over to a wet setup. Springs, shocks, brake pads, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, we woke up Friday morning and the track was pretty frickin' dry. And we had to run slicks. And so we did as much as we could to the car, but we threw the slicks on and everything was great. There's a lesson and a kudos to happen here. Steven and Perry both also had done their full wet setups, but where they made their mistake was, I think that maybe they felt that if you had a wet setup on the car, you had to run wet tires. It was way too dry for that, and unfortunately the two of them qualified way in the back in the first qualifying session, and then the second qualifying session was wet, so they literally were you-know-whatted for working their way through the races. So I don't know exactly where Steven started. I didn't look this up before I'm doing this report, but Steven started, Perry had his own little issues and wasn't able to race over the weekend. But Steven started, let's say he started like 45th out of 60 cars in the first race. He moved his way up to like 12th or something and had a good enough lap time to where On Sunday's race, he started about 12th and actually ended up on the podium at the Super Tour on Sunday. So way to go, Steven. Shout out to you for sticking with it and persevering through basically the hole that you guys dug for yourselves in the very first qualifier. So lesson learned. Just because you've got a rain setup on the car doesn't mean you can't throw the slicks on it, because the last thing you really want to do is be on rain tires in the dry. So anyway, that's our F production report. It was a cold and wet weekend overall. The prod guys actually got a lot luckier than some of the others. We were the first group Sunday morning, and it was like, no lie, 37 degrees in a semi-dry track. And it was a little bit of chaos out there for that. Fortunately, most of the guys came through without too much trouble. We did have a couple of full course cautions, which really shortened the race up. But like I said, the BMW came through, so we've got another race in a month, which should get Greg qualified for the runoffs here at Heartland Park in May. And we're just going to keep going. So in the meantime, we have Hallett next week. We will have a shop tour next week, probably be able to see some of the extra things that I've gotten done over the week. But I don't know if we had talked about this or not. Eric Prill and I both have rented SRF 3s from the Stevens Race Shop at Hallett. So I think there's 23 or 24 SRF 3s entered for Hallett next weekend, and Eric Prill and I have both rented one, and we're going to see what they're all about. So I've kind of always wanted to drive an SRF 3. They're really cool. They make good power. They've got sequential transmissions. You can left foot brake them because they've got auto blip. Should be a really cool car to drive. Looking forward to that. We'll do that next weekend. But beyond that, we just got to keep pushing here. Lots of differentials I need to get to. Transmissions, cars, yada, 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 right? Seinfeld episode. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Thanks for watching. Take care.